You're live? It's working? Hello? Yes. This is the fourth part of our discussion about the European narrative. And I'm just trying now to understand fully the live streaming potential of... Okay, I understand it's working, and so I'm very happy about this new performance, and thanks a lot. It's a little bit my experimental phase with YouTube, so I'm very happy that I think I found now a good way to communicate. Yeah, I want to talk now about the fourth part of this European narrative, which is so important to form the identity of the European Union in the future, of a European Union united, of 37 countries, allied with NATO and prosperous by the euro, also in the new countries and faster than previously envisaged. I have already outlined all these concepts in the previous videos, and now about the European narrative. We do have to discuss and repeat and reiterate the European values more by the key days to celebrate and to commemorate the Europe united. And this is very, very important. And so I have drafted a list of days which are very important. Some of them are already UN days and they're anyhow celebrated, but it's necessary to draft a full list completely together. And this is what I'm going to present now in this video. I would like to shortly go to the presentation and say very clearly I have identified about these 12 days. You know, the 27th of January, obviously that's a very important day, the International Holocaust Day. The 8th of March, the International Women's Day, should be considered to call it the Gender Equality Day. The 3rd of May, the World Media Freedom Day, and that's actually tomorrow, very important to protect our journalists and make sure that this is a very important European value, the freedom of the press. 17th of May, the International Day Against Homophobia. Very important again to show the European values to the world and to defend and celebrate this day every day, everywhere in the world, globally. And the 15th of September, the World Democracy Day. The 16th of October, the World Food Day. 17th of October, the World Day to overcome extreme poverty. 18th of November, the European Day for Protection of Children from Sexual Abuse, and the 25th of November, the Domestic Violence Day. The 2nd of December, the Global Day Against Slavery, and the 5th of December, the World Competition Day. This is very important as well for me as from the economic reform side as well, to make clear that decent and European-style competition, regulated and enforced, is very important for SMEs and for prosperity. The 9th of December, the World Anti-Corruption Day, and the 10th of December, the Global Human Rights Day, the 18th December, the International Migration Day. So many of these days, and they are all of them already official holidays, either commemoration and celebration days, either of the UN or the Council of Europe or the EU. But I have somehow drafted this list to reiterate how important it is that they are celebrated really everywhere, officially, clearly, and exactly those days. Yeah. And to give some EU power and budget and focus behind these days to really reiterate our values by activities. Secondly, we have already a number of EU weeks, which in various degrees are celebrated by various DGs of the EU or institutions part, but it's not a consistent list out there. It's not a kind of a common narrative reiterating and reinforcing leadership behind it. Yeah? There is no common website. There is no common management of all these weeks. And that's, I think, a serious mistake. Yeah? We really have to talk better about us. We have to celebrate our values, reiterate them, communicate them, and we have also to somehow do that outside of the European Union, make with our partner countries where that's possible, obviously, clear that these are our values. I will just list the most important. There might be others. I don't have a complete overview because I'm coming more from economic reform side. So I focused on the ones that I know and that I found online. That's, for example, the European Startup Week each February, startupweek.eu. That's the European Skills and E-Government Digital Week in March, which promotes the digital single market. Yeah? The European Competition Week. We mainly do that in China to explain to the Chinese counterparts what is competition, but that should be done everywhere, worldwide. Yeah? The EU has a very good competition regulation system. Of course, everything can be improved, but nevertheless, it's very fair, it's very decent, it works very well, it produces better results than in America, it produces better results than basically everywhere. And we have a very good SME policy based on that competition law. So that must be in the EU explained, that must be outside explained, that's very important. The European Green Energy Week, in April, the European Green Week, about the environment, the Sustainable Development Week, every June, the European Sustainable Energy Week. So 4 weeks very much on sustainability and the environment. That's very important. The European Heritage Week in September. The European Week of Regions and Cities in October. The European Week of SMEs, of small and medium enterprises, as well in October. The European Mobility Week. The European Vocational Training Week. The Global Entrepreneurship Week, again, a week which is very much dear to my heart from the SME community, the European Investment Week, and the CEFTA and Trade Policy Week. So the idea is that all these weeks really centrally well planned and organized with a leadership behind it, and done globally. We have to communicate what is the positive thing about investment, what is about trade, what is about entrepreneurship, mobility, SMEs, local self-government, about cultural heritage, sustainability, green environment, competition. These are very, very important weeks. And when we just do it one department, the rest doesn't care. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. Some delegations even don't know what is the competition week. Yeah? And there is no kind of somehow consistent reiteration of the message of what Europe is about. And then others set the agenda for us. Yeah? And that's not what we want. And these weeks are very important. The days I have talked about it are very important. And I have also already outlined most of the commemorative and celebration days. And I would like now to sum up. So why so many days and why so many weeks? Yeah, President of the EU Commission and leading European politician for the last 4 decades, Mr. Juncker. I really like him very much. He's a very great personality. I had the pleasure to meet him sometimes in the past, and he's really a man I like very much, and his humor and his charm. And he said, oh, no, that's for somebody else to discuss all these days, because it's really very complicated and it's very confrontational, obviously, because all the days, especially when they're connected with World War I, colonial times, genocides, yeah, World War II, yeah, and the Cold War, and every other single day is some community who has a completely different perspective. But that's important, that's good. We have to discuss all these issues in order not to stir up open wounds, yeah, but in order to make clear that we need a common narrative and to develop the identity. And maybe there is some really quite wrong perspective on some things, from homophobia to gender equality to competition to nationalism to the perspective of the wars to the Cold War. And then we have to discuss this. It's not possible to be happy in the European Union and somebody thinks maybe we were very unfairly treated in World War I or World War II, or actually the Soviet Union was a good regime, or we have to really see that Versailles was very unfair against the Germans. Or it was good to kill Franz Ferdinand, or there are so many thousands ways you can see the world in the bizarre perspective. Yeah. And it's not that we need to somehow streamline or order how people should think, but we have to communicate how the European elite and the academic world sees things in reality and how they basically are. And it can be established what is the truth. Yeah? Maybe some things are hidden because we don't have any witnesses in the faraway truth. But the facts and figures and realities of The last 100 years are very well documented. Yeah? Read a book or listen to a podcast, but then as a political entity, the European Union cannot just refer to books and I mean the European Union, not just as the EU level, but also the member states. Yeah, you have to develop a common narrative about the Balkan wars, about the Ukraine war. It's not a thing I can. Yeah, I like the Russians, and I think this Ukraine war is also the responsibility of the Ukrainians. They probably provoked it. There's many of these confused things out there. But the world is. We have to set the record straight. And that's the task of public authorities in advanced, responsible, rational, and what's my third? Reasonable. That my three R words, the alliteration for what the European Union and the member states of the EU, what they should be. So we have to set the record straight, and we have to build our own narrative. And if we somehow dodge this issue, then we face invitations from Putin on 9th of May to Moscow, and we don't know what to say. We are afraid to reject, and we all go. And we wave nicely to the same people who just a week before killed some guys in Syria, or were on the mission in Donbass, and we wave, thanks for liberating us in 44 or 45. Yeah. And this is not the way, I think, which can be seriously undertaken by a French president or a Macedonian president or whoever has accepted that invitation of Mr. Putin. And it's also not the way we can build a European Union of a significant sustainability in the long term. Yeah? I mean, we cannot just rely on outside forces to be so aggressive that we somehow dodge together, and unionize together, because we are afraid. We have to develop intrinsic unity. If we want to share more resources, if we want to increase the budget, if we want to take more members, if we want to be a global actor, on what kind of legitimate basis we can be that? On what kind of power projection basis we can be that, if we don't really know what we did in the past, and if we have totally different perspectives on what happened in Angola or in China and before. And then we go and send our maybe once aircraft carrier somewhere, and then we somehow don't know exactly what to do there. Yeah? And no. We really have to be better than this. So, as I said, we have to set the record straight. And in this next week, which is a very important week, the week for celebrations with so many key dates, yeah, with these questions of the 9th of May coming up, the EU Day, the 8th of May, the end of World War II in Europe, the 5th of May, with the liberation of the KZ Mauthausen, and this One Europe Day to celebrate the Council of Europe, the Press Media Freedom Day. It's a very good moment to discuss this narrative, yeah, to get a kind of common understanding on the difficult aspects as well, and to identify and build this identity of the European Union rightly and wrongly, what happened in the past, but being aware of all our past sins, to be ready for this unity in Europe which we need, and also to see all the aspects of it: the colonial past, the World War I, and the World War II, the different ideology mistakes which were exported from Europe to the world and which created so much havoc, the Cold War, the terrorism, political assassinations, and the new Cold War led by Russia against us. All these points really have to be clearly on the table, have to be marked by days, and all the European values specifically reiterated and confirmed with specific days, and all these days centrally coordinated by a specific department of the General Directorate from the EU Commission, which is really ensuring that all the European institutions and all the member states gradually harmonize the way how to commemorate, how to celebrate Europe, and to build and underline our common narrative, how Europe has developed, why we are so successful, and why we hopefully will be very long-term, very successful together, united. Thanks a lot. So, pen stream.